I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they've forgiven my mistakes. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming home. I'm back where I belong. Diddy featuring Dirty Money and Skylar Grey. Yes, he has returned. Previously much disliked figure in the Celtic community who a fair few people still don't have any time for. I'm back from my holidays. In other news, Brendan Rodgers is the new Celtic manager. We can officially say that now. It was rubber stamped and confirmed by the club just after noon on Monday. First on the stock exchange and then in this social media post by Celtic. It's a 3-year deal, the club say. There had been chat about it being a 5-year deal. 3 years is what we're dealing with. Just actually thinking as I say that, he'll be the first manager to go in immediately with a long-term deal in, over 20 years, maybe longer than that, I think, anyway, because when he came in the first time, he was on a 1-year rolling contract and eventually got a lengthy deal. So, yep, a 3-year deal. Elsewhere in the statement from Celtic, another few interesting wee bits. John Kennedy is staying and will support Brendan Rodgers as the assistant manager. So will first team coaches Stevie Woods, Gavin Strachan and Harry Kewell, as well as B team coaches Stephen McManus and Darren O'Day. So yeah, a fair bit to unpack there. Some quotes from Rodgers too that I'm not going to bother about too much. Nothing really major in there. He did praise Ange Postecoglou for the work that he did over the past couple of seasons. He spoke about wanting to deliver good football once again at Celtic, and he said that he wanted John Kennedy to be around. So that's where we're at, and kind of seems that you have to see to believe Brendan Rodgers as the Celtic manager again. I think some people had kind of spoken about that since he left the club, those 3 or 4 years, but I don't think many people actually believed he would be back so soon. Just 4 years after he left the club, he's back as manager. It's a hell of a call by him and by the club. It's a major statement as far as I'm concerned. Listen, we're going to chat about it a bit more. Now, again, I must confess, I've been on holiday for the past week. I have been out of the loop, it's fair to say. I've not really been looking at too much stuff. From what I kind of understand, it certainly, prior to my holiday, I would say it was pretty mixed about, people's thoughts on Brendan Rodgers coming back. It was maybe about 50-50, 50% of people more than happy to have him back, 50% saying, no, he left us, I don't want him back. Now again, I'm out of the loop a little bit, but I would say it's far more positive now, and has been kind of over the last few days. It's maybe nearer 80% or more of Celtic fans who now think this is a good move. Not everyone does. There'll be some of you watching this who aren't happy that we've appointed Brendan Rodgers again. The North Curve, clearly not happy. They posted this just right after the appointment was confirmed. Very mixed reaction to that very post as well, it's fair to say. I think there's a couple of things that we do need to just acknowledge briefly. How ballsy it is of Brendan Rodgers, like him, loathe him, to come back to Celtic, just to kind of stoat right back in. You almost kind of feel like going, wow, because the way he left and the way that we as a support felt about him, there was real vitriol there. You only have to go back to that, Hearts game, the first game after he left, and there was chat like, will he ever be welcome back at Celtic Park? And the vast majority said no. We obviously had that banner. We had so many other things over the years. And yet he still backs himself to come back to Celtic. And you kind of have to, you definitely do have to admire it. You also, for me, have to admire Celtic, the board, and getting Brendan Rodgers back in, because they will know that it's not going to be unanimously popular the decision. That there are going to be detractors. There is going to be a bit of a fallout. We've already seen a little bit of that. And yet the club clearly feel that he is the right guy to take us to the next level, and they're prepared to deal with a little bit of that stuff in the early days. And again, whatever you actually think about Brendan Rodgers coming back, I think you have to applaud that from both him and the club that they've actually made this happen. And of course, for me personally, I did obviously forgive Brendan Rodgers right away. I just want to get that out there. No, don't play the clip. My own viewpoint is that there's a difference between forgiving someone and moving on. If I bring it back to a relationship status, if a relationship with a good lady ends, you maybe don't forgive it if it's all gone wrong, but you move on. Time goes on and you get on with things. That's kind of how I feel when the Brendan Rodgers Celtic relationship ends. We don't need to forgive him because the way he acted was shocking. He left the club. He tried to take, I think, 3 or 4 members of his backroom staff.
Reportedly.
The day before we went to Tynecastle in a massive game. Let's not forget that if we'd have lost that game or even dropped points, which we were really close to doing, but for Odsonne Edouard, you never know what would have happened after that. Rangers might have got a boost. So for all the good Brendan Rodgers did, and he won all those trophies, he risked 8, 9 and 10 in a row by doing what he did. And for that, I can't forgive him. But equally, I move on. I get on with it. I no longer see the rage when I see him in a Leicester tracksuit than I did a year ago. Yeah, I don't ever try and be anything other than a football fan who says things and then goes back on them. It's funny what time can do. I just want what's best for Celtic, and I genuinely believe right now that Brendan Rodgers is that. I just put myself in the players' shoes right now. As I said earlier, Ange was like a major figure at Celtic, the major figure with regards to the team, and he signed what, I don't know, 85% of the kind of core were probably signed by Ange over the last couple of seasons. When he left, like, so abruptly, without basically waving goodbye, just went a couple of days after the cup final, a number of those players signed by him must have been kind of scratching their heads and going, right, he's away, what am I doing now? And that's why I personally felt we needed, a big figure to come in. And now you put yourself in the shoes of, I don't know, Matt O'Reilly, Jota, Alistair Johnson, Joe Hart. I've just picked out 4 players there. And they've got Brendan Rodgers coming in. A guy that they will all be familiar with. A guy who, no disrespect to those 4 players, has managed far bigger players than, Jota and Matt O'Reilly. You're talking about a guy who's managed, Steven Gerrard. Don't know why I've used him as an example, but, big player. Luis Suarez talks so highly about him. In fact, he was in the media, I think, last night speaking highly of him. Even at Leicester, guys like Jamie Vardy, Yuri Tielemans, players like that, and they all seem to have good things to say about Brendan Rodgers. So that's why, I'm delighted. I think looking at the players, I think they'll have got such a boost from this after losing such a big figure in Ange. Fair bit of chat as well in recent days about will the players be able to adapt to his playing style? I personally feel that's a little bit overblown. Yes, there are definitely differences between Ange's way of playing and Rodgers' way of playing. I think Rodgers is probably more methodical, a bit slower. We're not going to see the players running to take throw-ins and corners and goal kicks quite as often. But they are relatively similar. They both like to get the ball on the deck and pass and have, exciting wingers getting involved. So I think we'll be absolutely fine. I think the vast majority of these players, if not all of them, will be able to play the Brendan Rodgers way. I have gone on record in the past as saying that I felt in 2016 the appointment of Brendan Rodgers, looking back, is one of the most major moments in Celtic's entire history, and that may sound a bit overblown, but when you look at like the run of trophies we've been on, what is it? Now doubt myself. Is it 17 trophies in 7 seasons? 5 trebles and a double in 7 seasons. It all kind of started from Brendan Rodgers coming in. We were a club who won 1, maybe 2 trophies for like all of those years from 2002 till 2016. And now we're a team who wins like 3 trophies almost every season. And I know Rodgers hasn't been around for all of those trebles. He was only actually there for 2. But I do firmly believe that he change the mindset of these players. We still see it in guys like Callum McGregor, and obviously they deserve credit, and Scott Brown before him as well. But I genuinely believe Rodgers was a massive driver of that initially, and we're still seeing the benefits of it today. And now he's back to hopefully win more. So I think it's a really magnificent appointment. I do just want to say I don't particularly love Brendan Rodgers as a person. I don't think you have to, though. I think you just need to realise that he's an excellent manager, but that also he could be even better this time if Celtic have things, in place off the pitch that maybe we didn't have last time. A couple of reservations I just want to talk about. Number one, there's actually two parts to this. It's long-term sustainability. This is probably the main worry. So part one, will he leave for a Premier League job that becomes available? Now, honestly, quite possibly. Who knows? But my argument would be, wouldn't virtually any manager that's doing well at Celtic do that? I mean, we all kind of felt Ange was different and was going to stick around for longer. And he left when he had the chance to go to Spurs. I'm not angry at Ange, fair play. But, this is what happens. And I'd much rather have a manager come in and win 5 trophies in 2 seasons and move on, rather than have a manager who no English teams want. So I don't necessarily think it's a horrendous thing. Equally, maybe there's an argument that this for Brendan Rodgers could be him trying to change the narrative about him and Celtic, and maybe this is the chance for him to create a lasting legacy at Celtic. Who knows? Maybe already I'm getting a wee bit too attached. The second bit about the long-term sustainability is this kind of notion, and to be fair, it has a fair bit of credence over the years, is that Rodgers starts really well, maybe 1, maybe 2 seasons of doing really well, and then kind of falls off a little bit. And we've seen that at the majority of his recent jobs. We saw it at Liverpool, real drop-off after they nearly won the league that season. We saw it at Leicester after, a couple of seasons. And we even saw it at Celtic. I mean, we still won every domestic trophy when he was at the club, but that first season, there was a major drop-off from that first season to the second and to the third. So, is that something we're just going to have to, come to terms with, or is that avoidable? I know some people put it down to maybe his recruitment not being great. Other people look at the idea that he just has these methods that initially work with players, and then for whatever reason players get a little bit tired of his approach. I would hope that what Celtic are doing in the background, that it would be slightly different this time. But again, that may be one we need to keep an eye on as time goes on. But again, I would say if you do get 2 seasons out of Brendan Rodgers, he wins more trophies and then moves on to a Premier League job, is that really the worst thing ever if we keep winning trophies? For me, that's the thing. We need to keep winning trophies and hopefully make inroads in Europe, and I really hope this is the appointment to do that. Second thing I want to bring up, supporters' reaction. People are obviously going to feel a little bit uneasy backing Rodgers given the way he left in 2019. We've already seen that infamous Tynecastle banner, and that's been brought up again today. Is there going to be stuff from supporters groups, the Green Brigade in particular, through the summer and beyond? I would hope not. I feel it is a time to just get behind the team, regardless of what you think is the need for. Is there any need for division there? I know some people would argue that the club have created this by appointing Brendan Rodgers. I just think we all need to get behind him and see what more memories we can create. But yeah, it's clearly an issue, and we can't ignore it. Let's not be daft here. If things start well, then I think even more supporters are going to be behind Rodgers, probably singing his name. Equally, I've seen some things from rival fans saying that if things don't start well for us, that we'll all be turning on him. Could potentially see that, but personally I think that would happen with virtually any manager. I mean, we were kind of reaching a critical point with Ange up until that Pittodrie game. And I would actually feel more secure about someone like Rodgers going through a bad early patch than an Enzo Maresca, just because we know he has the experience and we all know he's a top level manager. That's the one thing that people aren't really arguing with here. So I don't necessarily see that as a negative, but those are two potential reservations. So yeah, this video has basically just been me unloading some thoughts that I've had over the last week. I'll be honest with you, like whoever we had appointed today, I would have been putting a positive spin on things. I would be here talking up whoever it was. I was ready to do one on Enzo Maresca and how I felt that, his City group connections could be, a positive for Celtic. But with some of the names that were on that list, I'll be honest, it might have been a little bit forced. It might have been me just trying to perk everyone up and all of that. I don't feel I have to do it at all with Rodgers. I know there is like all of this stuff going on, and I know some of you watching this might not be happy. I would hope the vast majority of Celtic fans realise that we have made like a mega appointment here. I tweeted about it last night. Ange Postecoglou left the club to go to Spurs, one of the top teams in England. We lost our manager, a guy who was adored at Celtic. People were kind of speaking on it the same terms as like Martin O'Neill and even Jock Stein, some people, in terms of the way Ange came across. And he left and we were all a bit kind of shaken for a couple of days. And that was only less than 2 weeks ago. And now we have Brendan Rodgers appointed, a guy who won 7 trophies from 7. And probably more than that, to be honest, given the impact he had at the club. And we've appointed him again. I think the board need real credit for that. I think it's a ballsy move from everyone, and I really hope it pays off. And I just can't wait to go forward here. I'm convinced he is the right guy to take this team to the next level, especially if Celtic are about to get really serious with transfers. It seems to me like everything else that was going on at the club when Ange was here is going to continue, right down to people like Harry Kewell remaining at the club, which I kind of would have been a bit surprised about a couple of weeks ago. I think it's great though. It seems like all the recruitment stuff is going to continue. All of the things that Ange kind of brought about, off the pitch as well. The methods. And we're just going to have another top level manager coming into the club. So I am so excited. I'm also excited because I'm away to Dublin this evening, away on holiday again. I believe we will have John and Asim doing a live video at some stage this week, probably on Wednesday. We also have parts 3 and 4 of our look back at last season's treble that will be released this week. They are effectively taken from the videos at the time, so it's like a kind of compilation of our videos throughout the season telling the story of the season. I would really urge you to check them out. Parts 1 and 2 are already out. 3 and 4 will be out later this week. I know it's not quite current stuff, but they are very enjoyable, and it took me a hell of a long time editing, so any watches of it would be massively appreciated. So yeah, plenty of stuff going out on the channel, even though I'm away, as the Brendan Rodgers re-era gets underway. I'll chat to you soon.